How's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on the very first episode of the Ned's MMA channel. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC on ESPN Chikazi vs. Cater recap, as well as UFC 270 predictions and thoughts going into this week's card. Today is January 19th, 2022. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about the recaps of Chikazi vs. Cater. Fantastic fight. Great way to start the year, honestly, with the main event. We're not going to be talking much about the rest of the card since it was fairly lackluster and nothing really stood out. We're really mostly going to talk about the main event. Like I said, fantastic fight. Cater's pressure, his elbows, and that early takedown and the stance switching really won him that fight. Those four or five things definitely dictated the pace, dictated the outcome of the fight. Can't count out Giga's kicks. Chikadze is a former kickboxer coming into the UFC. You know, he was on a 6-fight win streak, I believe, in the UFC. So he was on a hot run, and he really was starting to come into his own, getting finishes over Cub Swanson and Netson Barbosa. But Cater's pressure, and his stance switching, because early in that first, I would say minute and a half, Giga was landing a lot of kicks, mixing it up, landing through the leg, to the body, and to the head. But Cater's stance switching, switching stances from orthodox to southpaw each time he took a step in, and really pressuring, kind of hand fighting a little bit, and just pressure, really getting into Giga's face. And Giga got overzealous with the kicking. At one point, he even slipped, and man, Cater fucking got on him like fucking glue. He was able to get the body lock takedown. Uses a lot of strength and energy to pick him up and slam him to the ground. And he kind of just dominates from half guard. Then goes over to, I think he has side control for a little bit, and then he switches back over to half guard. And Giga did try to get up a few times. He did got feet on hips, but it just wasn't enough. Cater's grappling is a bit underrated. He's just always seemed to be known as a boxer, but he clearly showed that he can grapple. And Giga himself does his grappling. He trains out of King's MMA with Rafael Cordero, and there's a lot of good guys out of that gym, like Kelvin Gastelum, Marvin Vittori, and a few other guys like Benil Dariush, who's fantastic on the ground. So, he's getting actual training with good grapplers out there. It's not like he's just a guy who has no grappling. Like I said, Cater showed that he is good in there, and he can grapple if he needs to. And he showed that, and I feel like that really took the wind out of Giga. You definitely saw him slow down a lot going into that second round, as well as Cater. It was a bit of a sloppy fight at certain stages, because I definitely think the grappling took a lot out of both of them since they're both strikers. But Cater was the one that was able to dig deep and be able to keep his pressure and keep his game plan and just put it on him. I believe Giga is going to be back. I think he's going to be back in the middle of the year, and he's going to have a fantastic performance. Fights like this, even though he got basically outclassed and got beat down, 50-45, no questions asked. I still think he's going to do good. I think he's going to do great in the division. But I think it's just going to be a big learning experience for him. I definitely feel like there's a lot more to be seen in Giga, and just depending who he gets to fight next, he might get a Dan Ige or maybe Arnold Allen, someone just outside the 8, 9, 10 range. But he's going to be fine. He's going to do great things. He is a little bit on the older side, 33. So he will want to get back to work. He will need to get back in there, but not too quick, because he did take a lot of damage. His face was minced meat after that. He was cut up all over the place. But Cater, man, going up. Cater's just going up. His stock is back to where it used to be. A lot of people counted him out after that Max Holloway bludgeoning that he took. Max Holloway whooped his ass. It should have been stopped in that fourth round. But guess what? He's tough. They make him tough over there in Boston. So Cater, still learning with the New England cartel out there. So I hope he gets to fight Brian Ortega next. I feel like it's a fantastic fight. I feel like it's a great fight for both of them right now. I think Ortega has had a decent amount of time off since that ass whooping that he took from Volkanovski. That was back in September, I believe. It's been a few months. Cater's going to want a few months off as well, so hopefully we can see that as a main event for a fight night, hopefully in May and June, maybe in July. If they want to take a little more time off, especially seeing since Volkanovski's fighting um, Korean Zombie in April, I believe. So there's really no rush. Especially with Max Holloway being injured, so it's a little bit of a cluster right now. It's a little the division's wide open, but there's no rush. There's a lot of moving parts going on. So I would love to see a Brian Ortega, a Calvin Kattar fight next. So fantastic fight from both gentlemen. It was seeing fights like that is why I love the sport, and which is why I am on here talking about it and making this podcast and putting it on YouTube, because fights like that is what truly makes me love the sport. But yeah, let's move on to UFC 270. I'll be honest with you guys, not the greatest card. Not the greatest card. And even then, when it was first announced, it was not the best card. It was fairly lackluster, fairly mediocre. But there's been a lot of cancellations, a lot of movement going on. That's part of the game. Excuse me. That's part of the game, especially going into the new year with winter. With everything that's going around in the world. I don't want to specifically say it. I don't want to get monetized in case if I do make any kind of money off of this. I highly doubt it. It's the first video. I'm probably gonna get like 6 views. But with everything going on, people testing positive for the virus. Fights fall through, and just off the top, if you go on Tapology.com, you can just see how many fights have been canceled. Let me see. Kenny Brunson, that bout was rescheduled for some odd reason that was never explained. Greg Hardy versus Alexei Oleinik. Oleinik withdrew, and then literally a day later, Sergey Spivak came in and replaced Oleinik, but then Greg Hardy fucking mangles his finger somehow. He posted on his Instagram, I believe, and his fucking finger's like half off. Looks like he just got stitches, and they rescheduled that for UFC 272. Then we have Jacob Malkoun versus AJ Dobson. That was rescheduled. I don't know exactly I believe it's just a fight night. Vivian Araujo versus Alex Grasso. That got rescheduled to the UFC Columbus card in late March. Paulina Botello versus Ji Yoon Kim. But like I said, Botello got the virus, and apparently she got it pretty bad. There was I believe an article on MMA Fighting that she was struggling pretty bad. I believe it was actually bloody elbow. Excuse me. And then Worley Alves versus Jack Della Maddalena. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Worley Alves pulled out, but luckily they were able to find a replacement for Jack that we're going to talk about later. That should be a sneaky, fun fight. And Mozart Evloev versus Ilya Topuria, that fight fell through as well. Evloev got injured, but they were able to find a replacement with Charles Jourdain. And like I said, with the previous fight, we'll talk about that here in a bit once we go up the card. And starting off, it's a 13-fight card. It's going to UFC 270, Ngannou vs. Gane. Takes place Saturday, January 22nd. Starts at 5 p.m. Central Time. And first fight of the night is Jasmine Jasudavicius. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry, Jasmine, if I'm not. Versus Kay Hansen. I'll be honest, this fight does not blow my hair away. Kay Hansen's has coming off a loss and has been out of the octagon for quite some time. Her last fight was in October 2020. She lost a decision to Corey McKenna. Back in November. She lost a decision to Corey McKenna, and she's had 2 canceled fights since then. She was supposed to fight Cheyenne Belismas, and then Jasmine, she was supposed to fight on last week's card, but it looks like they rescheduled it to the Saturdays on the 22nd. I hope Jasmine proves that her record is what it is. She's 6-1. That's a good record for someone coming in, especially for women's MMA. You want a lot of these girls who have been in the UFC a little longer. Their records can be a little deceiving because there's a lot of losses on there, but mostly is because a lot of these girls have been in the UFC for a majority of their career. So they really can't build up that much in the regional scene as most men can. And but with due time, women's MMA is going to keep growing. Sorry about that. Women's MMA is going to keep growing, and we're just going to keep seeing better records. coming into the sport. Like I said, 6-1 is not bad, and her only loss is a split decision back in 2020. She's on a 2-fight win streak. Last win was on the Contender Series. She impressed Dana enough to get that contract, and now she's here, ready to prove that she belongs in the UFC. I believe Jasmine's going to take this via unanimous decision. I just think Kay Hansen's time off is not going to do anything great. Plus, it's been over a year. Personally, I don't like to see fighters out that long. I get it, injuries happen. Sometimes you can't even get a fight, or the virus, everything going on. It's difficult to get fights. But I just see Jasmine taking it. I do see her winning a pretty dominant decision, or just a simple 29-28, it's how women's MMA fights go. Next fight on the card, Matt Favola versus Renato Valdez out of Mexico. You know me. For those who know me, I like to back up my Mexican boys. I got to represent. But Matt Favola versus Renato Valdez. This should be a sneaky fun fight if Matt Favola decides to stand up and keep it on the feet. But Valdez is not bad on the ground himself. He's 10-0. Had a wicked fight on the Contender Series. If you guys have ESPN Plus, look up the Contender Series fight that he had against Patrick White. Man, it was a banger. It was a short fight. It was ended 44 seconds into the second round. That first round was just a back and forth bar fight. They're just swinging and banging. They just let their hands sling, and it was fun for as long as it lasted. Renato Valdez was cracked a few times, and he showed to have a good chin. And he was fighting someone that was good, Patrick White, young kid. He was 9-1 at the time, and that guy was a finisher, man. All his fights were finishes via TKO. So the dude can crack. Granted, his first few fights were very, very padded. Especially that he was fighting out of Alaska. That Alaska regional scene is, to be quite honest with you, pretty fucking bad. For example, he's 6-1. He's 0-0. He's fighting a guy that's 0-0. Making his pro debut. At that point, you shouldn't be fighting someone like that. But he also lost to someone when he was 6-0. The guy was 1-3. So, but you knew he had power. And Renato Valdez was eating bombs, and he was able to weather the storm, crack back, and make Patrick White wilt under the pressure. It was more like seeing Patrick White gassed and didn't want to be in the fight anymore. He didn't want to be in a firefight. He couldn't get that guy out of there like he did with the guys in the Alaska scene, and kind of just wilted. Favola, it's hard to say where Favola stands right now because he's coming off a pretty fucking bad loss, man. Pretty bad. He got flatlined in 7 seconds by Terrence McKinney back in June on UFC 263. And before that, he lost to Arman Tsarukyan. Granted, that was a very short notice fight for both of them. It was, I believe, 48 hours, 24 hours. Both of them lost their fights, I think the day of weigh-ins. Luckily, they were both lightweight fights, so they booked them together, just so I'm sure both of them wanted to get a paycheck. But yeah, he lost to Arman Tsarukyan. And he was fighting someone stylistically a little different. Amin Azaitar, big puncher. So I'm sure that, definitely had a factor to play in. And before that, he didn't fight since 2019. Beat Luis Pena by split decision. But that's a decent win. Luis Pena, regardless of all the BS that he's going through, that guy's kind of a piece of shit, the allegations. If you want to look him up, we're not going to get into that. I just want to say he's a piece of shit. But he was a good fighter. No longer with the UFC because of said allegations and the trouble he's had with the law. But good fighter, man. Luis Pena won fights in the UFC, and as well as Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner's also a good fighter. And he took Lando Veneta to a draw. Lando Veneta is really good. Even though he's a small lightweight, and now he's, I believe, in the appropriate division he's supposed to be in, at featherweight. But still, getting a draw over Lando Veneta is a good cap to have. It's a good feather to have in your cap. But before that, he lost to Polo Reyes, got knocked out pretty bad. He got folded like a launcher in that one. So, is it hard to question, going back to what I was saying about Matt Favola, is it bad to question his chin? Oh, I don't think so, since he has been pretty flatlined, devastatingly twice already. And, Renato Valdez is a guy who can crack himself. So, and he's not a small lightweight. His reach is okay for the division, but he is 5'10". He's not going to be dwarfed in there. He's not one of the smaller guys. He's not like a Lando Veneta. He's not like an Arman Sarukian, who's on the shorter end, where um, Frivola had success in the striking because of his size and reach. Um, so I do think it's going to be a difficult fight. I do believe Frivola is going to get the decision. I think his experience in the UFC, even though they have the same number amount of fights, relatively close, I just do think the UFC experience is going to help him out. I think he's going to be able to grind out a decision. But I would not be surprised if Valdez cracks him really bad, drops him, and he ekes out one of those rounds. So I'm gonna stick with my gut here. I'm gonna take Matt Fuller by decision. So yeah, I hope. And like I said, if you have nothing else to do, I would recommend you put on these early prelims. Some of these fights are gonna be sneaky fun. Like this Matt Fuller Valdez fight is gonna be sneaky fun. It's something I would tune in for, just as a fan of guys that you want to see swinging and banging. But all right, next up, third fight on the card. We're still on the early prelims. We have Vanessa Demopoulos versus Silviana Gomez Juarez. Interesting fight. Another fight that doesn't blow my hair away. You know, both ladies, not the greatest records. Vanessa's 6-4. Silvana 10-3. Silvana's definitely on the older end. She's 37 years old. Vanessa's 33. Both are coming off losses. It's kind of hard to say, how to dictate this fight. Do I think Demopoulos can take this? Yeah, I think so. She's the underdog going into this fight, and I think she can eke this out regardless of her 6-4 record. I think she's fought better competition, and I do think that she's going to be able to pull this off. JJ Aldrich is not a bad fighter, and I would harp more on losses like I have the previous fighters I mentioned, but I'm not disappointed with the JJ Aldrich loss. If it was someone else, yeah, I could have given her a harder time, but it's not the worst loss. Silviana Gomez Juarez, also someone that's, her last loss is not bad. Lupita Godinez, that girl's a badass. That girl's the real BMF. She's fought 3 times in a span of a month. That's crazy to think about. She's already has, let me see, 4 fights in the UFC, and she made her debut in April. Already 4 fights, and her last fight was a W against Loma Bumi. Good fighter, man. And her loss, she only lost to Luana Carolina, was a weight class above, and Jessica Penne, which I think she won the fight. I did think she beat Jessica Penne. I do think Lupita Godinez should be 8-1. So there's no shame in losing to someone like that. So that's why I feel like this fight is so hard to call. But I do think Vanessa can take it. And I think her quality of opposition has been better. And especially being 33 compared to 37, I do think age is definitely going to play a factor in that. They're about the same size. They're both very short, 5'2" for Vanessa and 5'3" for Silviana. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I feel like it's going to be a very clinch fest fight. Nothing great. Nothing. It's not going to blow your hair away. I will be surprised if it is a barn burner. But I'm going to go with Vanessa with another decision. Just to let you guys know, I'm going to be seeing a lot of decisions early in the prelims, but the rest of the card, I feel like we're going to see a lot of finishes. All right, up next, I think this is the last fight on the early prelims. Let me just double check. Yes. We have Tony Gravely versus Simon Oliveira. Good fight. Very, very good fight. Tony Gravely, great fighter, man. Don't let that 21-7 record fool you. He's lost to great opposition. Nate Maness, great fighter, man. Nate Maness is 13-1, now 14-1. His only loss, Nate Maness, is to Taylor Lapalus. Lost to sidekick to the body in the 3rd round. That guy's 14-3, and that guy's really good as well, So Tony Gravely is only losing to really good competition, and the guys that he's lost to, his opponents have lost to, are also really good competition. Brett Johns, he lost to Brett Johns back in 2020 in January, almost 2 years to the date when this fight takes place. Brett Johns is really good. He's 15-2 at the time. He fights at Bellator now because he got a better deal than what the UFC was offering him. I don't blame him. I wish he stayed. I wish the UFC offered him more money. I would always take another Welsh fighter in the division or just in the organization. And he was fun to watch, man. He's also one of the more massive bantamweights, I believe he like shot up to like 170 when he fought Pedro Munoz. Um, I believe it was TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt too. I forgot exactly what UFC number was that, but they fought in California. And if, for those of you who don't know, California Athletic Commission reveals the fight night weights of these fighters, and Brett Johns was by far the biggest bantamweight by like 4 or 5 pounds. And when you're fighting at 135 bantamweight, that makes a massive difference. He was far larger than every other bantamweight by at least 3 to 4 or 5 pounds, maybe. And plays a major role, especially when it comes to grappling. He beat Tony Gravely via rear naked choke in the third round when it was a competitive fight. Brett Johns just was able to lock it up. And even before that, he lost to Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix is a beast. Manny Bermudez, massive bantamweight himself, who's not even a bantamweight anymore. I believe his last fight was at lightweight. And then Merab Dvalishvili, Ricky Bandejas, Pat Sabatini, who's also in the UFC, who's in the UFC as well. Um, you know, Great fighters. Don't let that 21-7 fool you. He has good wins on the regional scene. Draco Rodriguez, Chris Moutinho. For those who don't know, Chris Moutinho was the quote unquote pizza delivery boy that Sean O'Malley fought. I mean, say what you want, but that guy proved he's tough as hell. And Tony Gravely put him out in the fourth round in a title fight. He knocked him out. So he's beat good competition. And these guys he's fighting have good records, experienced records. That's what you like to see. I think Tony Gravely's going to beat Simon Oliveira. I think he's going to get a TKO finish. Simon Oliveira has a good record, 18-3, making his UFC debut. And, honestly, he won on the Contender Series, but honestly, he did not impress me at all. He got a split decision victory. It wasn't great. I was honestly surprised he even got a contract. But then again, there's this card in itself had some weird things going on, and Dana was very, very friendly that specific evening, with giving out contracts. I think he gave almost every guy a contract, which I don't think Simon Oliveira deserved, especially when you already have a very stacked 135 division. I don't think that should have been given out, and I think Simon Oliveira easily could have lost that fight. But he's getting a big test early. Tony Gravely's no scrub, man. Already has, I believe, 5 fights in the UFC. Fought some of the best guys, and 4 fights in the UFC. One of them was on the Contender Series. But yeah, don't mean to ramble on too much about this fight because it's very early in the card. But yeah, I think Tony Gravely's gonna come out. I think he's gonna get a TKO finish in the second or third round. I think he's got power in his hands. He dropped Nate Maness in that first round in his last fight, and almost had him out. This guy can crack, man. So I definitely think that Tony Gravely's gonna get the W here and prove that the UFC bantamweight division is very, very talented, regardless of this guy's record. Excuse me 1 second. I am a little parched. All right, now we're on to the ESPN portion of the prelims. ESPN and ESPN Plus. All right, starting off the night with a banger. If you got nothing going on around 7 o'clock, I recommend you turn on your TVs, put on ESPN, because Jack Della Maddalena versus Pete Rodriguez is going to be a banger for as long as it lasts. Jack had a fantastic performance on the Contender Series, man. This guy has hands. He mixes it up so well. He's got beautiful boxing, rips to the body, and he just also mixes up his kicks as well. This is another fight if you have time, if you want to really get into some of these younger guys or guys that are not well known. Turn on ESPN, put on the Contender Series. Some of these guys that got signed on. Fantastic fights. Excuse me. Pete Rodriguez. He's fighting a guy named Pete Rodriguez. Only 4-0. But man, this guy can crack. He's got finishes left and right, even on his regional scene. I think he's only gone to decision once, and that was a loss on his end. But all his wins, even in the amateurs, were by finishes. This guy can crack, and this guy can finish, dudes. I saw a couple of his fights on YouTube. just to make sure who I was looking at, because on Tapology, I was thinking, man, this guy's pretty small for the division, 170 pounds, 5'9", 73 inches. Jack Maddalena is obviously going to have the size advantage. He's 5'11", 73-inch reach. And he definitely is a little thicker and denser. He's kind of a big boy. But man, he really impressed me. Pete Rodriguez, that is, with the way how he finished some of these guys. Now, do I think he could do that to Jack? Honestly, I don't think so. He's got that big old head, big old noggin, so he could take a shot. Jack is 10-2, only 2 losses. Were super early in his career, back in 2016, his first 2 pro fights. Both by finishes, rear naked and TKO to punches. But that was more of a gassing situation. That was more of just weighing it on thick and just being gassed out and letting the fight just slip away from him. But since then, he's got on a 10-fight win streak. Finishing guys left and right. All his wins by finish, except for his Contender Series fight. This guy's a finisher, man, and these guys are going to stand and bang. Both these guys are strikers. So this is going to be a fun barn burner as long as it lasts. But I see Jack getting the finish, using his size and reach and his just technical skills and physicality, to beat Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez isn't the most athletic guy. He carries a lot of body fat. He honestly seems like he should be a lightweight. He seems like he can definitely, if he gets his diet correct and gets his strength and conditioning on point, he definitely can compete at lightweight. And I feel like once we see him in the cage that night, I feel like that would be evident. And that, maybe he makes the best of the opportunity and does get a finish. But honestly, I feel like he took this fight on short notice. Regardless of the outcome, I do think that Pete should move down to 155 pounds. I feel like that's a far better division suited for him. But like I said, this is going to be a TKO finish for Jack. I wouldn't be surprised if Pete gets the TKO finish himself, but I'm telling you guys, this is going to be a barn burner. This is going to be fun. So tune in. Definitely tune in. All right. Next up, we have Michael Morales versus Trevor Giles. Man, another fun fight. 170 pounds. Michael Morales, another guy making his debut. One thing you guys are going to notice, a lot of guys making their debuts. A lot of Contender Series guys. Dana loves to put his Contender Series fighters on a lot of these bigger cards. He really wants to make it. He wants to show that his program that he's made, finding find up and coming young talent, is working. And I feel like that's going to answer a lot of questions. But that's kind of getting off topic here regarding the card itself. Michael Morales versus Trevor Giles. Fun fight, man. 12-0 versus 14-3. Trevor Giles was a lifelong middleweight, and I'm surprised he's dropping down to welterweight. I don't think that was the best idea. I mean, granted, he is coming off a loss, but he was on a 3-fight win streak beforehand. Granted, it should have been a 2-fight win streak. I do not believe he won the James Krause fight, but he was doing good against Dricus du Plessis prior to the finish. I believe he won the first round. He was kind of doing his thing in the second, but du Plessis, man, that guy can crack. Du Plessis out of KSW. That dude can crack. South African. And he really showed that, that these guys from KSW are legit. And du Plessis is really good, and I can't wait to see him fight up on the echelon. So I think that kind of just makes the loss not as bad for Trevor Giles, because he lost to someone that's genuinely legit and someone that is respected and should be respected. Because du Plessis, I think, was just on the fringe of being ranked. I think he was going to fight a ranked opponent, but he fell out. So clearly the UFC has a lot of faith in du Plessis. So losing to someone like that, I don't think it's a big deal. But then again, the decision for him to drop down to welterweight's a little concerning. I don't know what made him want to do that. Maybe he thinks he's a small middleweight, and maybe he thinks he'll perform better at welterweight. That's something that we'll just have to wait and see how he actually performs, because that doesn't always work out. You could have situations like Cody Garbrandt, where you drop down to 125 and you get absolutely flatlined in one round, or you have a moment like Jose Aldo, where you move down and people are like, you already were killing yourself to make 145. You're dropping in at 135. Is that the best idea? And now he's top 3 in the division and one fight away from a title fight. So it's hard to say. It just, we have to see how things play out till they play out. But he's fighting a young kid, Michael Morales, 12-0, 6 feet tall, 79-inch reach. Very good reach for the welterweight division. 79 inches, that's long. That's very long. And this guy's hasn't fought the best competition, but he's finishing some of these guys and finishing them quick, how he's supposed to be with the level of opposition that he's fighting. I do like his last 3 fights. Those guys do have a lot more experience. He fought in the Contender Series a guy that was 9-3, Ukrainian cat, who was also on a great win streak. Who also was finishing dudes, and was on a good regional scene like LFA and Fury FC. And he got a decision. And Dana, like I said, for the first few weeks, he was super generous giving out contracts. And I'm not saying some of these are unwarranted, but I do think some of them are surprising. Do I think Michael Morales deserved that contract? I do. I definitely do. He's 22, 12-0. He's got experience. If he was 6-0, 5-0, I would have definitely been raising questions. But this guy's gotten busy. He's 12-0. I've said that 3 times already. But he's a good fighter, and he's a finisher, and he's physically athletic. He's a specimen, and he's just one of those young cats coming up who are of the more well-rounded scene. They don't focus on one thing. They're just these guys that come up. The younger and younger generations that come up are more well-rounded, and their holes are a lot less. Their weaknesses are a lot less than they are with some of these older guys. It's one of those things where you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's why a lot of these older guys still focus on one thing that got them to the dance, and they focus on that and kind of just brush up on the other stuff. But they hope that one thing, that one discipline, either it's striking or jiu-jitsu or wrestling, keeps them going. These younger guys have the young age to their advantage where they can learn everything so fast. Especially guys like Michael Morales could look like a completely different fighter from his Contender Series fight to the way he fights Trevor Giles. He could look eons better just because of that youth to his side that it can just propel him to be great. But there is also the factor that, maybe the young kid was brought on too soon, and then maybe he gets his ass whooped. That could happen because Trevor Giles is no joke. The dude can crack. So I'm a little 50-50 on this fight, but I am going to take Michael Morales by TKO finish. I do think the weight cut, if Trevor Giles is able to get down to 170, I think it's going to be a factor, especially with him absorbing punches. He's not going to be able to hydrate his brain enough. I don't think he's going to be able to eat those shots enough. And he did get flatlined his last fight. He got deaded pretty good. But I think Michael Morales is going to prove that he belongs in there, and going to be 13-0 that night with a great win. He's going to have a highlight to his resume and a decent name that will make me look forward to his next outcome. So I think Michael Morales is going to get a TKO finish. All right, moving up on the card, another fun fight. Hani Barcelos versus Victor Henry. For those of you who don't know me, I am very high on Hani Barcelos. I think this guy is legit. He's 16-2. He should be fighting top 15, top 10 talent right now. Victor Henry, 21-5. A lot of experience on the regional scene. I believe he's also a Rising champion, he was the Deep champion out in Japan. Excuse me. And he's fought at Ryzen a few times. Ryzen is not the greatest organization. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that because there's a lot of Japanese MMA fans out there that think it's legit and it can rival the UFC. Little secret, it can't. But he's a pretty good fighter, and he's tough. And he's got a great win on his record in Kyler Phillips, who was top 15 in the UFC earlier this year. Beat him by split decision. That's a great win to have. So he's not someone to look over, and think he's a scrub. No, this guy's really good. Hani Barcelos, really good at himself. Dude is 16-2. Has only one loss in the UFC, and arguably should have been a fucking draw. And But it is what it is. He didn't have enough output in the first and third round. I thought the second round was a 10-8 for Honey Barcelos, man. He knocked down Valiev twice, and pretty bad, man. He had him on Queer Street. He had him on roller skates. He had him all over the fucking place. Um, you know, you can't leave it in the hands of the judges, especially when you have very little output in the first and third round, and you can't bank on them scoring a 10-8 round for you, even if you have the guy on roller skates. But I think this is going to be a clear-cut, easy victory for Honey Barcelos. I think it's going to prove why he belongs at the top, why he's just outside of the top 15. And I think he's either going to get a TKO or submission finish. I think, honestly, he's probably going to have his way a little bit with Victor Henry. It's going to be a fun fight for as long as it lasts because Victor Henry is very tough, but I see Honey Barcelos. I'm going to go with submission. I think he's going to get a submission in the second round. I think it's going to be a fairly easy W for Honey Barcelos, man. I think this guy's that good, where I don't have much confidence in Victor Henry at all. Sorry, Victor Henry, if you ever listen to this, but it's just Honey Barcelos is that good. All right, up on the card. Number 8, headlining the ESPN prelims, ESPN/ESPN Plus. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Jourdain. Man, what a fight. Fantastic fight. Ilia Topuria, I'm also really high on this guy. Super young. Nationality, he's Georgian, but he was born in Germany and he fights out of Spain. So, this guy's kind of all over the place. Young cat, man. He's 24. Undefeated at 13-0 and on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC over really good competition. He beat Yusuf Salal. That guy was on a 4-fight win streak. Damon Jackson came back to the UFC, had a big win over Mirsad Bektic, flatlines him in one round. And then he fights Ryan Hall, the argued most ducked man in the division by Ryan Hall stands. I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but seeing Ryan Hall get flatlined like that brought me so much satisfaction. Not for Ryan Hall's health, but for his fucking fanboys that will not shut the fuck up about Ryan Hall and how everyone's ducking him and how everyone is avoiding him and that they think that he's going to leg lock him and Ryan Hall is just going to smoke everyone to the belt and that he's the best guy in the division. Let's get one thing straight, Ryan Hall fans. Ryan Hall has only one heel hook finish in the UFC, and that was over a 40-year-old BJ Penn. He could not do that to Darren Elkins. He could not do that to Derek Minner. He could not do that to the GOAT Artem Lobov. He couldn't do that to Gray Maynard. So what makes you think he's going to be tapping top 15 guys like that? That's ridiculous. And him saying that guys were ducking him when he's been pulling out of fights, they gave him Dan Ige and he fucking pulled out of that fight. So seeing him get starched like that brought me satisfaction, just so the Ryan Hall fans could shut up. And the Ryan Hall fans were making excuses even after the fight. Oh, he came in with a broken hand. He broke his hand in the first punch. He didn't throw a punch until 3 minutes into the first round. Already when he did like 6 Imanari rolls and they all failed and he looks ridiculous, flopping all over the ground. Absolutely horrendous game plan. And he was out for 2 years and you're telling me this guy did not learn how to develop a double leg takedown or a single leg? Or even a body lock triangle. Like, come on, man. Like, all he does is throw wheel kicks and do Imanari rolls. And he comes out of the famed TriStar Gym who I do believe is a good coach for us, a hobby. But seriously, that was your guys' game plan? Doing that and not mixing it up at all? Like, that's why I sometimes don't get some fighters where they have all this time to develop. Yet they do sometimes the exact same thing or they look worse than they did. And I'm not going to buy the excuses that he came in with a broken hand. I feel like that's a pathetic use of an excuse. And Ryan Hall, he couldn't even finish Derek Minner, even though that guy has 8 submission losses on his record. Kind of tells you about the guy, And hearing Joe Rogan hearing Joe Rogan be silenced by Ilia Topuria after he's fucking Ryan Hall's looking up at the stars, asking where the hell he's at, was so satisfying because Rogan was sucking him off so much. And he was even talking shit to the crowd. They're like, oh, these mouth breathers don't know what they're watching. No, they do know what they're watching. People who go watch UFC fights and pay money for tickets at least have an understanding of what's going on out there. I would say at least 80% of them do. 20% are probably casuals that are probably just there to watch fights, or maybe there to watch the main event. But most of the guys in there know what they're watching. And they knew that his game plan was not working out. So yeah, there's my rant about Ryan Hall, and there will be more rants in the future if you guys are fans of that. If you guys aren't, sorry. Oh, you're gonna hear a lot of that. But back to the fight with Ilia Topuria, Charles Jourdain. Shout out to Charles Jourdain for stepping up on a week's notice. Um, Ilia Topuria was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev. Evloev pulled out, but Charles Jourdain came in on short notice. This is gonna be a fun fight as long as it lasts. Um, I think his fight would be a lot closer on paper if Jourdain had a full camp, but seeing as he had a short camp, and he took a not crazy amount of damage, but a little bit amount of damage in his last fight back in December. Um, I think Topuria is going to put a hurting on him. I think he's going to get either a TKO finish on the feet with body shots, or he's going to drop him and then go for a submission, because Topuria has beautiful hands. His left hook to the body to his overhand right is a thing of beauty. It's picture perfect, super clean, super slick, that I just can't get enough of every time I watch it. You guys want to see some of his highlights? The UFC posted a video on Ilia Topuria on his first 3 fights. Fantastic. If you just want to become a fan of someone new that, it's a bit obscure and you want to talk crap on your casual friends, yeah, that's a fight to look out for. But yes, I think Topuria is going to get a finish in the second or third round. Jourdain is tough enough to survive the first round, I believe, and he is skilled enough. But I think it's going to be a coming out party for Ilia Topuria yet again. To start off the year, I hope he fights at least 2 more times this year, preferably 3. I want him to get 4 fights in this year because I really love how this guy fights, and since he's so young, I want him to be as active as possible. But we'll see how things play out. Him having a victory like this is, really going to limit things for him, because he's only going to want someone up the top 15, and that's absolutely fair. That's someone who he deserves if he comes out and gets a dominant victory over Charles Jourdain. But that's it for the prelims. Now we're moving on to the main card. Starting off with Rodolfo Vieira versus Wellington Turman. Rodolfo Vieira, submission, first round. Not much to say here, honestly. Wellington Turman, he's young, physically strong, but he's honestly hasn't blown my hair back at all. He's had very disappointing performances in the UFC. Got a split decision over Sam Alvey. You should not be doing that in 2021. You should be destroying Sam Alvey in 2021 if you want to be taken seriously as a contender. Bruno Silva knocked him out from the guard. Flatlined him from the guard. It was vicious, brutal. Andrew Sanchez just 1-2'd his ass. 1-2, 1-2, and fucking Wellington Turman goes crashing down on the canvas. Out cold. Beats Marcus Perez, but he's not even in the UFC anymore. And loses his split decision to Carl Robertson. He's 2-3 in the UFC. That's not a good record. And they're giving him Rodolfo Vieira. And Wellington Turman, his strength is jiu-jitsu. You're fighting arguably the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner in the UFC today. Rodolfo Vieira is a monster on the ground. That's where he wants the fights to go. And say what you want about his loss to Anthony Hernandez last year, almost a full year ago, back in February, where he fucking gassed out like crazy. But he came back, and he improved. And he choked out Dustin Stoltzfus in the 3rd round. Slimmed down a little, got rid of a little bit of the muscle, worked more on conditioning, and worked on his striking. And he looked better than ever again. He looked back on track what he looked like beforehand. Choking out dudes. He's got a wicked rear naked triangle. Rear naked choke. Rear naked triangle. So I was looking at arm triangle, and I combined both of them together. He's got a wicked rear naked choke. And his arm triangle is also really good. So I just see a first round submission win for Rodolfo Vieira. It's going to be a short fight. Like I said, Wellington Turman hasn't blown my hair back, and I think it's going to be a short night for him. All right. 4th fight, or 2nd fight on the main card coming up. 4th fight left. Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmagomedov. Interesting fight, man. Interesting fight. I feel like this is really going to prove how good Said Nurmagomedov is. I think the Dagestanis are pretty overrated for the most part overall. Do I think some of them are very, very good? Yes. But I think overall, they're massively overrated. Because a lot of these guys have been in the UFC for quite some time. Yet their activity is very minimal, and it's very concerning for how often some of these guys pull out. Man, they're pull out machines, honestly. And I'm not trying to talk shit. That's just a fact. You pull up any Dagestani's record on Tapology that people could be hyping up, you'll see numerous canceled fights for every single one of them. Saeed hasn't fought since 2020 in October. He's been out of the octagon for quite some time. Before that, he fought in 2019 in February. Excuse me, in December. Before that, he fought in 2019 again, but that was February. December to February to December, that's 10 months off. And then his UFC debut was in 2018 in July. So he's been with the UFC for, let's see, 2000, joined in 2018 July, 19, 20, 21, 22. It was just 3.5 years. He's been for the UFC for 3.5 years, and he's only had 4 fights. That's fighting once every 9 months. That's very low output, very very low output, especially for a guy who joined fairly young, And he's getting canceled fights. He's pulled out of 2 fights already. He pulled out. I think there was a canceled bout with Hani Barcelos the first time, and then he lost when it was rebooked in December. That's what I'm saying. Hani Barcelos is good, man. He beat Said Nurmagomedov. This guy's on the main card. Pulled out of the Jack Shore fight in September. Now he's fighting Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann, I think, is a little bit on the tail end of his career. And it's hard. It's kind of sad to see because, he's not that old. He's 32. But it's just, he's on a 2-fight losing streak. He got out-grappled by Merab Dvalishvili. And Jimmy Rivera just outstruck him. And he did everything he does. Jimmy Rivera does everything Cody Stamann does, but better, in every facet of the game. His last win was a decent win. It was Brian Kelleher back in June of 2020. And he got a draw with Song Yadong, even though Song Yadong got a point taken away. He got a draw there. He made it a close competitive fight. But I just don't think he's going to do good against Said Nurmagomedov. Said's a big guy for the division. He's 5'8". Got a pretty wicked reach. Let me see what his reach is at. Got a 70-inch reach. Cody Stamann's 5'6". He's got a 64-inch reach. Man, that's a 6-inch reach difference, and for 4 bantamweights, that makes a difference, man. It makes a huge difference. So, I think Said Nurmagomedov is gonna get I think he's gonna get a TKO finish. He's got really good spinning back kicks. He's got really good kicks in general. He's got really good distance management. I think Said's gonna piece him up, and I think he's gonna get a finish in the 3rd round. So it feels bad for Cody Stamann, because I'm a Cody Stamann fan, and just sucks that he didn't move up the way he should have when he was more in his prime back in 2018, 2019. But moving on to the feature fight of the card, this is going to be a fun one. Mikael Pereira versus Andre Filial. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Andre. I apologize if I mispronounced that. For those of you who don't know, Mikael Pereira, he's a Brazilian dude that does fucking flips all over the place. Just makes it a crazy fun fight. And I'm happy this is as the feature fight because this is going to be action regardless of whoever wins. Andre Filial coming in on short notice, 14-3. All of his wins, 11 of his 14 wins are by knockout. So this guy can crack. And he has good wins. He's beat some good opposition on the regionals. He's the last guy to knock out James Vick. I know that doesn't say a lot, right? Because it's James Vick, fucking no chin. Got a fucking porcelain chin that's been taken by literally everyone. But having a win like that in the regional scenes where, James Vick could still beat a lot of guys on the regionals regardless of his chin. Because he was technically fairly decent and he was pretty good for a time. But I think this is just a little too much too soon for him. I think Mikael Pereira is going to get a highlight reel finish. I think he's going to get either a flying knee KO or just a KO with a straight punch. Because Mikael Pereira is, regardless of his size, he's still extremely athletic and fast. He's one of the bigger welterweights out there, but that doesn't hold him back. He's not sloppy or plotting. He does get sloppy when he gets gassed, especially in the third round of his last fight. Definitely got sloppy. Definitely lost that third round. But in that first round and even partial of the second, man, he's someone to respect because he can put your lights out in any second and he can come from anywhere. So I think Mikael Perez is going to get a highlight reel finish. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. So if you are watching, please tune into that. Don't take a piss break. Don't take a beer break. Do that when they're walking out. you know, get the snacks when the guys are walking out or they're doing their interviews. Don't do it in the middle of the fight because this is a don't blink kind of fight. All right, on to our co-main event. A fantastic fight. Fantastic cap to this trilogy. Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Can't wait for this. Personally, I have this fight 50-50. A lot of the community has this fight. Already giving it to Brandon Moreno with ease, Y'all must have forgot who Deiveson Figueiredo was. Do you guys need to rewatch the Joseph Benavidez 2 fight to see how he fucking butchered that man? It was Deiveson nearly should have been locked up for the beating that he gave poor Joseph Benavidez. Mauled him. The most one-sided beating I've seen in my life. It was honestly hard to watch because I like Joe B. Moreno now with Henry Cejudo, so he's definitely going to be improving on his game. He's definitely going out of his way to improve. He didn't stay in Brazil, which I feel like holds a lot of Brazilians back is when they stay in Brazil, especially after a few losses and they don't improve the way they should. And Deiveson is making that change. Do I think it's enough? I don't know. It's going to be hard to say because it wasn't enough for Zhang Weili to beat Rose Namajunas, even though how close that fight was. Should it have been as grapple heavy of a game plan that Zhang came in with? No. I hope Deiveson doesn't do that. I really hope that Deiveson does what he does best. March down, strike, and make it a dogfight, Because Deiveson does have a chin for days, and Moreno does too. And Deiveson needs to get that respect back. He needs to get that respect of being feared and making fighters go like, oh shit, this dude can fucking crack. He needs to get that respect back. And Moreno has a chin and a half, but if you crack him hard enough, he'll be like, shit, man, I got to be careful. I can't get too caught up in that, Moreno came out with the perfect game plan that second fight, had a beautiful jab, dropped him with a jab even. You don't see that often. And he just weathered the storm, feinted a lot, really made Deiveson bite on the feints. So I don't know how this fight's going to come out, I love that Brandon Moreno's taking it seriously. A lot of people think that Figueiredo's going to get blown out of the water. Nah, man, this is going to be another 50-50 fight, and I think it's going to be a lot like their first fight. It's going to be a dog fight like that again, and it's going to be another 5-round war. I do think Brandon Moreno's going to get the decision. I think he's going to be able to push harder in those 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds where it matters. Because Figgy is known to slow down, and he will slow down regardless of how good his weight cut is. It's just the way his body's built. Some of these guys just don't have the cardio for 5 rounds, regardless of how much they train. Some guys are just built for cardio, and others aren't. And Deiveson is not. He's built to destroy people. Moreno's built to go grueling, long fights and get finishes late. Call it that Mexican cardio, that Mexican heart. Or just how biologically they're built. Deiveson Figueiredo was shredded beyond belief. Moreno is just not. He's great shape, but if you were to look at him next to each other, if you put a picture of both of them, you'd obviously always pick Deiveson Figueiredo because that guy's built like a fucking shit brick house. But I think Moreno's going to take it. I think he's going to win the later rounds. But it's going to be a fun fight as long as it lasts. It's going to be a lot more competitive than the rematch. I'm telling you that. So I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno by decision, 48-47 across the board. But yeah, can't wait for that one, man. That one's going to be a fun one. All right, now the main event. Wow, what a banger. What a banger of a main event. This main event is fun, man. Very, very, very fun. Very, very fun. Francis Ngannou versus Real Gon. Probably the most intriguing heavyweight title fight in UFC history because of the history, because of the stylistic matchup, and with everything going on with Francis Ngannou right now. Before we get into just breaking down the fight a little bit and talking about it, Francis has been going back and forth a lot with the UFC management regarding his contract. Now, I wish this was settled before this fight was booked. I wish they were able to come to an agreement. Because I want to see fighters focused on their fight. I don't like it when fighters are distracted by other things because we don't usually get the best performance out of them. And it kind of makes me worried for Francis that he's not going to come in fully prepared or fully focused. I feel like he's going to have a lot of weight on his shoulders, because he's been demanding a lot from the UFC. Do I believe he deserves to be paid more? Yes, absolutely. But do I think some of the things he's asking for, like a boxing deal in there with his UFC contract, is too much to ask for? Yes, absolutely. I think asking for a boxing deal in his contract is honestly ridiculous. You need to focus on your mixed martial arts career. Look at what happened to Conor McGregor. Yes, he made millions and millions of dollars, but taking that boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather honestly ruined his mixed martial arts career. Say if he just wasn't hungry anymore, or say just the time off of grappling and the kicking aspect of striking really deterred from his overall skill set. And it doesn't always work out when guys go to boxing. I don't see a single UFC fighter, for the exception of Anderson Silva, being successful when they go into boxing. Even guys that have good hands, like Clay Collard, who was piecing the fuck up out of Anthony Pettis in PFL. He got his ass whooped several times when he fought actual good competition in boxing. Frank Mir got knocked the fuck out by Pulev. That fight shouldn't even be booked. Tyrone Woodley got knocked out by Jake Paul. Ben Askren got knocked out by Jake Paul. These MMA fighters are not boxers. There's only a handful of guys, and I mean a very small handful of guys, that can get away with being able to box in the UFC. And one of them was Anderson Silva. Another guy that I think could get away with that right now, just in the UFC in general, off the top of my head, is Peter Yan, maybe Israel Adesanya, maybe, it's still hard to say, but maybe Adrian Yanez, and that's honestly it. A lot of these guys are good strikers, good boxers, but once it comes to fighting the cream of the crop, and that's what Francis Ngannou is talking about. He's talking about fighting the cream of the crop off the bat. He's talking about fighting Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and Anthony Joshua. He's going to get his ass whooped by every single one of those guys. They're going to toy with him, honestly. So if he ever does fight him, and I don't think it is going to happen, I think him being distracted with all of that, I think it's just going to be a benefit for Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane, 10-0. Very fluid on his feet. Amazing footwork. Super fast with his kicks. Amazing defense. He moves like a welterweight out there. He moves like Wonder Boy, honestly. He's like a heavyweight Wonder Boy. But without the lack of chin or the lack of fight IQ when things get a little hard for him. Like, he's able to move out of the way and duck under and able to fight back when he has to. I think this is going to be a long night for Francis Ngannou with everything that's going on. And just stylistically, I think Ciryl Gane is his worst stylistic matchup. And I think Gane's going to either get a late TKO finish or submit him in the fourth or fifth round. Is the chance of Francis Ngannou getting a fucking knockout in the first or second round? Yes, absolutely. That guy's got a fucking death touch, dude. That guy's got nukes in his hand. But do I think he's going to be able to pull it off? I don't think so. I think it's going to be a long night for him. It's going to be a repeat of Stipe versus Francis 1 again. And I hope he does stay with the UFC regardless of his loss. And I hope the UFC pays him what he thinks he's worth, but also fair, asking something fair, because Francis is not the most popular guy out there. Um, a lot of guys aren't. He's not that popular. A lot of my friends don't really know him even by name. They kind of know of him, but I guarantee you, most of them are not even going to pay for the pay-per-view because they're not willing to dish out $75 of their hard-earned money to watch him fight. Um, so yeah, Surreal gone by unanimous decision or late TKO submission finish, but I think it's gonna be a rough night for Francis. And that's it for UFC 270. On paper, not the greatest card. I think this is like a 5 out of 10 on rating wise. We'll see how well it performs, how exciting the fights are. Um, it could be a 10 out of 10. Maybe every fight is an absolute banger, or if we get an absolute snooze fest. We won't know until it happens. But some fights I am really high on. Like please look out for that Jack Della Maddalena Pete Rodriguez fight. A good Hani Barcelos performance. Elliot Tapori versus Charles Jourdain should be fun. Cody Stamann versus Said is going to be fun while it lasts. I think Said is going to get a TKO finish. And Mikael Pereira is going to get a highlight reel finish. And we might have a fight of the year contender with Moreno Figueiredo. The Surreal Gane and Ngannou fight, I'll be quite honest with you, I honestly think it's not going to be that exciting. I think it's going to be pretty boring. It's going to be just think Surreal Gane dancing circles around him. But yeah, like I said, rating on paper 5 out of 10. We'll see how it performs on our recap next week. But yeah, thank you for everyone to coming and listen. If you stayed this long, I appreciate it. This is just something that I want to do on my free time as a hobby, and not waste my time with playing video games and just doing fuck all. I want to do something that I'm proud of and I'm happy about, and that I'm passionate, and that I can invest time and energy into, and hopefully this brings happiness to some of you. If not, at least some sort of enjoyment. If you hate it, I don't blame you. This isn't for everyone. Talking about fights isn't for everyone. If you just want to give a like and support, I'll take that. Any kind of support, I'll appreciate. But if you were coming, you did listen, and you're all the way to the end here. This is asking for an hour of your time is so much to ask for. So I'm beyond grateful if you made it this far. Honestly, I'm just doing this for fun, and I'm not doing this to make money. I'm not doing this to, I'm not trying to make this, my new hobby. I mean, my new profession, my new career. No, this is just something I want to do for fun, because it's just something I love to talk about and something that makes me happy. And hope, even if you may not be a fan of mixed martial arts or the UFC or boxing, I just hope that you can just support me in doing something that I'm passionate about and that I love. Just having your support means so much to me. For anyone that's listening, friends, family, or just a random stranger that stumbled across this video that was just looking for some more info on fights. I appreciate you viewing. I would really appreciate if you could give me a like. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. If you want to stick, if you enjoyed this and want to keep following me, please subscribe. I will be posting at least one video a week. Once I get the hang of it, I will eventually get a camera, so you'll be able to see my beautiful face, and you'll just see me getting better and better at this, because this is something I definitely want to improve on and bring something different to the table, compared to other content creators that make videos like this. So I just want to be good at this craft and bring you guys entertainment, and I hope you guys like it. If you have any criticisms or you want to see something to be improved on, like the audio or something that happened, please let me know. I'll look into it. I'll make sure I get better at this. But I appreciate your time, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.